Good afternoon. Today we're going to be talking about Aiden McDaniel and his reading data. We're going to be looking at how he's doing in reading, where he is, his current progress. We're going to be talking about his data, and I'm going to be kind of explaining what these numbers all mean for him, how he's comparing with other students, and what that means going forward for him and the instruction that we're going to be doing and the support that we're going to be giving him going forward. So currently right here, this is Aiden's data. We have a little chart of data for him based on assessments that we've given. Right here is FSA reading from his third grade FSA that he took at the end of last year. He got a 304, which qualifies him in the achievement level 3. You can see that the benchmark is 300 because that's the bottom number that needs to be reached to get a 3 or a passing score on the FSA. So he passed, and that's great. There's definitely more room for improvement for him, but that is a good score. It's a great passing score. Right here we have iStation, and iStation is an online program that we use at the school to test students. Once a month, they take an iStation test that tests them on different components of reading. Right here you can see they test on fluency, word analysis, vocabulary, and comprehension. And we can see how Aiden scores compare to the benchmark scores. For his overall reading score, he got a 1633, fluency 79, word analysis 1693, vocabulary 1565, and comprehension 1657. So he is slightly below in all of these categories, in fluency, in word analysis, vocab, and comprehension. The main one that I'm seeing the probably biggest deficit in is fluency here, but we definitely could work more and support him more in all of these areas to help get him up where he needs to be. Over here is Ames. This is Ames from last year, second quarter Ames scores. He got a 42 in ELA with a benchmark score of 70. This was the first reading test that we took during the first 9 weeks. Aiden got a 72, and we just had a benchmark score of a 70, of a C for passing, and he did do that. And for fluency, I've done one-time fluency reading with Aiden, and he read 72 words correct per minute. And how we figure that out is I time him, and he reads for 1 minute, and I just mark on my own paper words that he missed or words that he skipped, words that he couldn't pronounce, etc. And I count after 1 minute how many words he said correctly in that amount of time, and he got 72. The benchmark for where he is right now in 4th grade, at the beginning of 4th grade, is to read around 94 words correct per minute. So he is a little bit under that, but with some practice, I believe that he has that potential to get up to where he needs to be. So recently, from this data, I chose Aiden to perform an IRI on him, which is a reading inventory assessment. And what that means is just I started with a word list with him. I started with a list of words. I started down in 2nd grade because I wanted to both boost Aiden's confidence in his ability to read words, and I just wanted to see if he was reading below his grade level, below the 4th grade level. So I started with 2nd grade and had him read these words for me without me helping him, and I tried to see how many he could get correct. And this informed me of what level he was on. For instance, if he got a certain percentage of words correct, that would determine whether it was an independent level for him, like whether he could read on that on that grade level alone without me and understand and answer questions if he was reading a text at that level. If it was an instructional level, that means that he can still read that text at that level pretty effectively. He just needs a little bit of support and probably needs a teacher to help guide him and help him. And a frustrational level is an area that we try to avoid. We did go up to his frustrational level just to determine how far Aiden's instructional level went, but we don't try and do any instruction or really try and have students read on their own for texts that are at that frustration level, because as we know, it is frustrating for them and it's hard for them to answer questions or really work at that level if they can't even really decode it or read it by themselves. So I started at second grade with him here, and I realized that his instructional level is actually at second grade. This is where he was getting at least 70% of the words correct. Once we got into third grade, he was getting down in 55%, and so I decided that that wasn't a good level for him to begin reading text at, so I started him at second grade. Once I determined this from the word list that I gave him, I actually went down to first grade, which is what level 1 means, first grade level text, because I did want to build his confidence in his reading before I started really testing him. So what is happening here is I gave him some concept questions, and concept questions are just to see if he has the background knowledge needed to understand what they're talking about in this particular text. And if they get above 55% on these questions, that determines that they will understand what the text is talking about. So I gave him this grade 1 text. You can see how I graded where he changed words or left out words, or where he corrected himself on his words. And then I would calculate his words correct per minute, like I was talking about earlier. I would look at his prosody, which is, your prosody is basically your expression, how well and how fluently the words flow together when you're reading them. Then I asked him to retell the story for me, and then I asked him some comprehension questions about the story that he read to figure out if is he actually just reading, or is he understanding what he's reading while he's reading it. And we determined that this first grade level for him, it was instructional for him decoding wise in his reading ability. He was able to decode this text and read it at an instructional level. And comprehension wise, it was also instructional for him at this first grade level. He only missed one question out of the 6, and so we determined that he did well enough at this level, I would go up to second grade. So then I did the same thing for second grade. I asked him the comprehension questions. He seemed to understand this topic, so I had him read this text, The Family's First Trip, as well, and I took notes as he was reading it for me. And then I had him retell the story back to me. I had him answer some more questions. And I determined from when he read this particular text that he was also at an instructional level for grade 2 or level 2. And for comprehension, he actually only missed one question again. So he was actually at an independent level here, which was interesting to me that it actually went up from last time. But either way, he did well at the second grade level, at level 2. So I moved up. I moved him up to level 3. I wanted to see how far he could go. So I moved up to level 3. And once we got to level 3, it got a bit interesting because he had a lot of trouble with a lot of the concept questions. He didn't seem to have the background knowledge necessary to read a lot of these stories. So I had to skip a lot of stories because I didn't think that he would understand them. He was only getting 40% or 50% on the concept questions, and I was unsure if he would understand. So I had him read the last one I had him read was a level 3. He got a 64% here, so he was able to read this text. And he read it at an instructional level. He was decoding at an instructional level, and he told the story back to me. But when I asked him questions about this particular story, comprehension questions, he actually missed quite a few questions. He only got 5 of the 8 questions correct. And so this ended up being a frustrational level for him, comprehension-wise. So that indicated to me that even though he was reading and was decoding at a reasonable level this text, he's not actually understanding what he's reading at a 3rd grade level, at level 3. I kept going just to make sure that this was in fact a frustrational level for him comprehension-wise, but again, he didn't have enough background knowledge for the concept questions to really read any of the stories. I did this for multiple stories. I even tried to go up to level 4 just to make sure I was at the right level for him. And he couldn't get any of these concept questions correct. So it was interesting to me because he is reading relatively fluently. He can decode well. He can take words apart, figure out how to sound them out, which is great. And that's a huge skill to have for reading. It's just now we need to get it so that we need to supplement his background knowledge, and we need to work on his comprehension skills. Make sure that he's going back and actually focusing on what he's reading and asking himself, asking himself, am I understanding what this text is telling me? Does it make sense to me? So I think now going forward, what I want to focus on more with Aiden is comprehension strategies while he's reading to make sure that he is comprehending and understanding what he's reading. So going forward, I think I want to work more one-on-one with him or more in a small group to teach him strategies, maybe such as highlighting or stopping after a certain number of questions to ask himself, did that make sense? What did I just read? And to teach him those self-regulatory strategies so that he will be able to make sure himself, once he gets to the comprehension questions at the end, or once he gets to the end of a story or a text, that he actually knows what he read. So if you have any questions about this, just let me know, and thanks for talking with me.